When Roland Abante stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, nobody could have predicted the whirlwind of promise, hope, and heartbreak that lay ahead. Born in a small coastal village in Cebu, Philippines, Roland's life was defined by the ceaseless rhythm of the ocean. Dawn-to-dusk fishing trips, boat repairs, casting nets, and hauling home whatever the sea provided, if anything at all. From a young age, he learned that survival was precarious, that each day's catch might feed his family or leave them struggling. Yet amid the grit and salt spray, Roland discovered an unexpected refuge, his own voice. As the sun rose over the water, he would sing softly to himself, practicing scales against the roar of crashing waves. In karaoke bars scattered throughout town, he transformed into a local sensation. Neighbors would pause mid-conversation, captivated by the unvarnished emotion in his tone. There were no lessons, no coaches, only a weathered fisherman with a raw gift. He entered neighborhood singing contests, yes, but always returned to his small boat, nets in hand, dreaming of something beyond his daily toil. Contrast defined his existence. By day, the relentless labor of life at sea. By night, the buoyant possibility of melody lifting him above hardship. That contrast framed the narrative he would carry onto the global stage, a story of grit and grace, of struggle juxtaposed against soaring notes. Yet even as his voice attracted growing attention, Roland never lost sight of the reality awaiting him off stage. The cramped quarters of his family's humble home, the months without a stable income, the frustration of a dream repeatedly deferred. Then came the viral videos. A friend recorded him singing on a beachfront pier, the sunset framing his silhouette. Clips circulated across Filipino social media, shared in Facebook groups and messaging apps, until international viewers stumbled upon them. Talk shows in Manila featured his performance. Amateur vloggers in Los Angeles gushed about the fisherman whose voice seemed to emerge from the very heart of humanity. Suggestions poured in. You should audition for AGT. At first, Roland dismissed the idea as fanciful, but the excitement swelled. Was this his once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Auditioning for a major American talent competition required visas, travel arrangements, and a leap of faith. For someone who had rarely ventured beyond neighboring islands, it felt surreal. Yet Roland believed in the power of his story. Such a stark juxtaposition, a humble fisherman performing a soul classic on an international stage, would command attention. He packed his few cherished belongings, bid farewell to his family, and boarded a plane bound for Los Angeles, carrying hopes that stretched as wide as the Pacific itself. The audition room was fluorescent lit and cavernous, filled with anxious contestants. Roland waited in line, heart pounding. Memories of casting nets and navigating unpredictable tides seemed distant as he stepped under the harsh spotlights. In that moment, he was no longer just a man who had weathered storms at sea. He was the embodiment of every underdog who dared to defy the odds. Introducing himself with humility, he shared his background. A fisherman from Cebu who sang to survive, who chased oxygen to keep his dreams alive. Then he sang. The opening notes of Percy Sledge's When a Man Loves a Woman rang out, and something shifted. Every lyric felt lived, infused with the salt of sweat, the grit of early mornings, the yearning he'd carried hidden beneath coarse nets. The judges sat slack-jawed. The audience fell silent, hooked by the authenticity pouring from his lungs. By the final note, the room erupted. Thunderous applause, standing ovation, tears glistening on cheeks. Simon Cowell, notoriously hard to impress, wiped his brow. That was extraordinary, he said, voice tinged with awe. Heidi Klum's eyes sparkled, and Sofia Vergara beamed in delight. Roland's unvarnished sincerity had pierced through stages, screens, and global boundaries. But contrast framed not only his ascent, but also his descent. After the triumph, unexpected controversy emerged. On live results night, despite public outcry and a social media campaign that trended worldwide, Roland did not advance to the finals. Accusations flew: bias against international contestants, a flawed voting system, unspoken barriers that privileged flash over substance. Filipino communities rallied in protest, dubbing it an act of injustice. Yet Roland, ever dignified, offered no bitterness, only gratitude for the platform AGT had provided. His elimination cast a harsh light on the delicate aftermath of reality show fame. The camera's glare dims, and contestants return to ordinary life, often ill-prepared for the collapse of instant recognition. For Roland, the transition stung. No record deal, no global tour, just the echo of applause fading into silence. Yet he refused to disappear. He leveraged newfound followers on social media, posting clips of intimate performances in community halls, small festivals, and church gatherings. With each song, he affirmed that his voyage was far from over. The stage might have changed, but his spirit remained steadfast. His story resonates because it embodies universal contradictions: triumph and setback, promise and peril, global spotlight and local reality. It reminds us that talent alone does not guarantee smooth sailing. Post-GT life demands perseverance, vision, and adaptability, qualities Roland had honed hauling nets in stormy seas. As he continued to sing, he built bridges between broken dreams and fresh starts, weaving a narrative of resilience that transcended borders. And so, the fisherman-turned-singer from Cebu carries on, voice unbroken, eyes fixed on horizons yet unseen. His saga is more than an audition clip. It's a testament to human endurance, the friction between aspiration and outcome, and the enduring power of song to lift souls above even the roughest waters. Even after the standing ovation, the spotlight dimmed and reality returned. Instrumental music and cheering crowds gave way to an empty room and uncertain prospects. Roland Abante discovered that global praise does not automatically translate into stability. No label calls, no season managers, and few concert bookings greeted his eager ambition. Instead, he faced the familiar struggle to feed his family and balance art with livelihood. He realized persistence alone would not guarantee success. He needed a vision. Against this backdrop, Roland embraced digital platforms. Videos of his powerful voice resurfaced online, spreading hope among his supporters. YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook offered essential channels to reach new listeners. He filmed intimate performances near the shoreline, capturing natural sunsets and the gentle crash of waves for atmosphere. Each upload required no budget, only his smartphone. Viewers responded with comments of encouragement and shared clips across continents. Global interest rekindled quickly, forging worldwide momentum for his sustained journey. In his hometown of Cebu, grassroots initiatives began to unfold. Neighbors organized benefit concerts, pooling donations to cover travel and recording expenses. Local radio interviewed Roland, promising airtime for his original songs. School teachers and market vendors rallied behind the fisherman-turned-singer who had become their symbol of hope. His wife, Sethland, managed logistics from a home office, coordinating event schedules. This web of solidarity fueled opportunities. Embracing authentic connections over commercial endorsements, Roland prioritized community-driven projects, celebrated unfiltered talent. Roland turned to songwriting. He scribbled lyrics on scraps of paper during quiet moments at sea. Verses about longing, perseverance, and family emerged naturally from his experience. With volunteer musicians in Cebu, he recorded rough demos using a single microphone in a makeshift studio. Those raw tracks resonated online, drawing praise for their honesty. Listeners overlooked low audio quality because emotional delivery transcended imperfections. This effort confirmed a truth: authenticity can eclipse polish when empathy drives every chord. He released his first independent single 6 months after AGT, titled Echoes of Home. The heartfelt ballad captured the ache of departure and the pull of roots. It climbed regional charts and earned airplay on radio. It reinforced the bond between Roland and listeners. Fans called it a balm for homesickness, a tribute to shared struggle. Lacking glossy polish, its sincerity sparked discussion online. Critics applauded its raw storytelling, observing that few mainstream artists reveal vulnerability so freely. Digital buzz opened doors overseas. Filipino associations in Singapore, Dubai, Los Angeles invited Roland for virtual concerts performances. Expatriate audiences longing for a taste of home welcomed his Cebuano accent and raw emotion. Ticket sales funded recording sessions, donations provided essential equipment. Fans sent messages of support with their contributions. These resources covered studio time, microphone upgrades, and travel costs. In turn, Roland performed heartfelt concerts from modest venues, sustaining an evolving musical journey fueled by communal support. Throughout this journey, Roland's family remained his anchor. His wife, Sethland, and their son, Drake, provided joy amid uncertainty. Video calls reminded him of home's warmth whenever he traveled. Their shared faith and resilience mirrored the themes in his music, hope arising from hardship. After concerts, he surprised his son with sing-alongs, moments that appear on his feed. These glimpses reinforced his authenticity and deepened connections with fans who admired not only his voice, but his humility and devotion. Media attention expanded to feature pieces and podcasts that traced Roland's journey. His resilience, rise, and the communal role of karaoke in Filipino culture prompted in-depth interviews. Cebu television aired segments on his family roots and early struggles. Stories reframed him as more than an audition sensation, portraying an odyssey of hope. Sponsorship offers followed, allowing Roland to create modest merchandise, t-shirts and postcards with marine motifs. Proceeds went towards studio time and touring costs, fueling steady brand growth. Looking ahead, Roland's ambitions grew. He seeks collaborations with Filipino songwriters and producers to harness his emotive vocal style. Plans include a duet album blending traditional ballads and fusions. Discussions are underway for vocal technique workshops in his hometown, empowering aspiring artists. He envisions a documentary chronicling his path from fisherman to stage sensation, featuring rehearsal footage and interviews. By exploring diverse creative projects, Roland builds streams for artistic expression and income, ensuring his journey remains relevant always. His star continues to ascend, with each chapter offering lessons in perseverance and creativity. Roland Abante's journey transcends any single stage or contest. It embodies a voice forged by adversity and nurtured by community. From Cebu's fishing boats to virtual arenas, his narrative explores universal themes of hope, sacrifice, and the transformative power of song. Tragedy and triumph have danced together in his story, yet the melody endures. Stay tuned for the next verse of this extraordinary odyssey that Roland's journey has been defined not only by melodic triumphs, but by the mental and emotional battles that followed the applause. After each performance, the adrenaline high gave way to quiet nights fraught with questions. Had he done enough? Would his next rendition carry the same magic? Many contestants speak of post-show blues, but for Roland, there was an added layer of culture shock. He had spent decades in the rhythm of tides and village life. Suddenly, he was fielding interview requests, social media tags, and sponsorship proposals, all alien to a man whose calendar once measured days by fish catches and karaoke nights. Adapting demanded resilience as strong as any wave he'd braved at sea. Behind closed doors, Roland battled imposter syndrome. He wondered if he was truly a singer or simply a viral curiosity. Every new comment praising his voice was shadowed by a fear that the next click would reveal him as a one-hit audition wonder. Friends and family offered reassurance, but navigating international fame required professional guidance. Eventually, Roland connected with a vocal coach with experience in cross-genre styling. Together, they dissected his technique, focusing on breath control and phrasing to honor both his soulful roots and the demands of modern pop production. These sessions stretched him beyond raw instinct into disciplined artistry. As he honed his craft, Roland explored genre fusion. His next recordings blended Filipino folk melodies with R&B rhythms, overlaying traditional kalintang percussion with smooth vocal runs. Collaborating with local percussionists and a Los Angeles producer he respected, he recorded a new EP in a makeshift studio overlooking the coastline. The process was chaotic at times: power outages, unstable internet connections, late-night mixing sessions, but it captured the authenticity he cherished. With each layer of instrumentation, Roland felt his identity extend rather than shrink. He refused to dilute his heritage for mass appeal. Instead, he celebrated it, weaving cultural textures into globally resonant soundscapes. Financial strain tightened around these creative ventures. Studio fees, mixing costs, and marketing budgets loomed large. Yet Roland's community had formed a safety net, a crowdfunding campaign facilitated by his fans, with tiers offering digital downloads, handwritten lyric sheets, and personalized voice notes. Patrons from Manila to Melbourne contributed, driven by loyalty rather than trend. Their support covered production expenses and a small stipend for Roland's family back home. That grassroots solidarity reaffirmed that his fan base was not a fleeting audience, but a living network invested in his growth. In return, he documented every step, from equipment setup to final master, building an authentic connection that transcended polished PR narratives. Beyond music, Roland committed to philanthropy. He had witnessed children in his village unable to afford school supplies and community members lacking vocational training. Partnering with a regional NGO, he organized music workshops teaching vocal technique, songwriting, and stage presence to underprivileged youth. Local volunteers helped secure a repurposed barangay hall outfitted with donated microphones and speakers. Roland led by example, sharing stories of rejection and resilience, emphasizing that creativity was not a luxury, but a tool for empowerment. The workshops generated visible transformation. Shy teenagers grew confident, composing lyrics about personal struggle and collective hope. For Roland, these moments offered a sense of purpose beyond chart positions. Digital engagement remained central to his strategy. Armed with a simple DSLR camera and a compact gimbal, he produced weekly vlogs that mixed performance footage with unvarnished glimpses of daily life, fishing excursions, family dinners, travel hiccups. He invited viewers into his world rather than presenting an idealized image. Live-streamed Q&A sessions attracted hundreds of participants, eager to ask about his technique, his hometown, or his plans for a full-length album. Comments scrolled rapidly. "Your voice heals my spirit," or "I'm so proud of you, Roland." These interactions reinforced a two-way street of gratitude, where fans felt heard as much as he did. Logistical challenges persisted. During the height of the pandemic, international travel restrictions disrupted planned performances. Visa delays postponed dates in Florida and Canada. However, Roland pivoted quickly to virtual concerts. He partnered with global Filipino communities to produce online festivals featuring multiple acts, where his set topped viewership charts. The virtual format lacked live audience energy, but it extended his reach to rural areas without concert venues. He realized that adaptability might be his greatest asset, the ability to convert obstacles into new pathways for connection. As production of his EP neared completion, Roland faced another hurdle: branding. His image as a humble fisherman-turned-singer was powerful, but he wanted to evolve beyond a single narrative. He collaborated with a creative director to refine his visual aesthetic, casual yet polished attire that referenced coastal motifs. Album art featured his silhouette against a dawn horizon, nets replaced by musical staff lines. This branding balanced nostalgia with ambition, signaling growth without forsaking origins. The rollout campaign combined teaser clips, behind-the-scenes photos, and strategic release dates tied to Philippine cultural festivals to maximize resonance. The culmination of these efforts arrived on release day. Tides of Hope, his EP's title track, premiered on streaming platforms and local radio. Early reviews praised its emotive depth and fusion of tradition with contemporary sensibility. Playlists across Southeast Asia and diaspora communities featured his music, while independent critics highlighted his songwriting maturity. Though still far from blockbuster stardom, Roland had carved a sustainable niche built on authenticity, adaptability, and community support. His story had shifted from a single audition to an ongoing career, defined by continuous evolution rather than momentary triumph. Roland's name began appearing on posters pinned to community boards in cities across Asia, North America, and Europe. Each advertisement promised a night of soulful ballads and folk-infused anthems performed by the fisherman whose voice had echoed from Cebu to the world's biggest talent show. The transition from intimate village halls to packed auditorium stages tested every lesson he had learned, from fishing in storm-swept seas to live streaming under rolling power cuts. And it taught him that growth was both exhilarating and exhausting. In Jakarta, the first leg of his regional tour, Roland stepped onto a polished wooden stage at a downtown theater. Backstage, the air hummed with the excitement of crew members preparing spotlights and sound checks. He felt a familiar knot in his stomach, but he also noticed something new. a quiet confidence born of countless intimate performances where he had learned to harness nerves as raw energy rather than fear. On stage, the contrast between that backstage tension and the hush of anticipation in the auditorium reminded him of the transition from fishing boat to audition room, moments that demanded presence above all. When the house lights dimmed, Roland opened with a haunting rendition of Bayan Ko, the Filipino patriotic song he had sung during his earliest karaoke contests. His voice rose above the notes, carrying layers of cultural memory and personal longing. The audience sat rapt, many recording on their phones, capturing a performance that felt both deeply personal and universally resonant. The Asian diaspora in the crowd erupted in cheers when he broke into Echoes of Home, the ballad that had become his signature. Each chorus carried an undercurrent of gratitude from fans who had faithfully supported him since the AGT viral frenzy, and gratitude from Roland that he could give something back to those who had invested belief in his journey. Backstage after the show, a festival organizer from Kuala Lumpur approached him. She spoke of a desire to feature his story in a documentary celebrating artists who bridged cultural divides. It was precisely the kind of global narrative Roland had dreamed of, yet he felt a flicker of hesitation. Documentaries demanded vulnerability, opening wounds as well as showcasing triumphs. Would he be willing to revisit moments of heartbreak on camera? Then he reminded himself of the purpose that had driven him this far. Every note he sang and every story he shared served as encouragement to those still fighting unseen battles. He agreed. Within weeks, film crews followed him from city to city, capturing behind-the-scenes moments, long airport layovers, midnight songwriting sessions, emotional reunions with family via video call. The cameras recorded Roland singing ragged folk tunes on a deserted beach at dawn, his silhouette framed by the soft pastels of sunrise. They filmed him meeting students at a school in Manila to discuss his trajectory from netcasting to note-hitting. In these scenes, his narrative arc was laid bare, a man who'd learned that a single opportunity could transform a life, yet whose real power lay in sharing himself honestly, even when the spotlight dimmed. Touring also included moments of disillusionment. In New York City, a venue mixed thousands of dollars in ticket sales and sponsorships, but the audience was sparser than expected. Critics and arts publications praised his voice, but lamented the lack of marketing muscle behind his shows. Roland found himself confronting the truth that artistry alone did not guarantee fill-the-house crowds. He had to be not only a performer, but also a strategist. He spent late nights drafting email outreach to local Filipino organizations, designing social media campaigns with his creative director, and negotiating partnerships with sponsors aligned with his values. Environmental groups interested in coastal conservation, fisherfolk unions championing sustainable livelihoods. Between gigs, Roland returned home to Cebu for short respites. The smell of salt and fish markets greeted him like an old friend. He took long fishing trips with his brother, relearning the feel of nets and rods to ground himself amid the whirlwind of touring life. Each expedition served as a reset button, reminding him of where he'd started and why his journey mattered. These moments of return kept him anchored, preventing the currents of global fame from sweeping away his sense of purpose. Meanwhile, the documentary premiered at a major film festival in Toronto. Roland attended the red carpet screening with Seth Land and Drake at his side. The film's intimate portrayal of his backstory, childhood poverty, the perseverance of karaoke contests, the crescendo of global recognition, and the solitary challenge of translating viral fame into a career, moved audiences to tears. Critics praised the film's narrative honesty, noting that it avoided sensationalism by embracing quiet truth. The festival buzz generated fresh interest in Roland's music, leading to invitations for appearances on talk shows and music podcasts. Despite renewed momentum, Roland maintained a careful balance. He declined offers that felt too commercial or misaligned with his values, walking away from lucrative endorsement deals that would compromise his artistic integrity. Instead, he accepted a collaboration with a nonprofit providing scholarships to underprivileged musicians, an arrangement that allowed him to mentor recipients and ensure tangible impact. By aligning his career with causes close to his heart, he protected his brand from dilution and deepened the emotional connection fans felt with his mission. With renewed bookings and philanthropic projects, Roland embarked on a second global tour, this time leading with his EP, Tides of Hope, and interspersing selections from the documentary's soundtrack. Each performance opened with a short narrative, Roland speaking directly into a single microphone, recounting a pivotal moment of adversity and triumph before launching into song. This blending of storytelling and performance created a powerful rhythm. Audiences laughed at moments of levity, gasped at revelations of heartbreak, and soared with the melodies that followed. It was theater rooted in authenticity, a format that made each concert more than a display of vocal skill. It became a communal journey. In Berlin, he paused mid-performance to address the crowd. Every wave we ride shapes us. And sometimes, the roughest tides bring us to places we never imagined. The sincerity in his voice stirred the audience to a standing ovation before a single note had been sung. Roland had transcended the role of a mere singer. He had become a conduit for shared human experience, a living example of resilience forged through contrasts, poverty and opportunity, isolation and solidarity, silence and song. Roland's life, once defined by tides and fishing nets, had evolved into an intricate dance of stages, screens, and schedules. Yet amid sold-out shows and documentary premieres, he confronted a quieter tension, the tug between professional momentum and personal well-being. On mornings in an upscale hotel suite halfway across the world, Roland woke before sunrise to record voice memos of new lyrics. As a father, he treasured these solitary hours when creativity flowed unimpeded. As a husband, he longed for the simple comfort of breakfast with his wife, Seth Land, and their son, Drake. The compromise was Skype breakfasts, glimpses of home against a backdrop of continental sunrise. Even in those screen-bound smiles, he felt the ache of absence, a reminder that the very dream lifting him higher also carried him farther from the hearth that fueled his passion. Still, Roland refused to settle for nostalgia alone. Recognizing that modern audiences crave deeper engagement, he launched a bi-weekly podcast, Songs Between Tides. Each episode began with an intimate but unvarnished confession, Roland describing the genesis of a particular song, the moment of inspiration, or the doubt that threatened to derail him. He then played an acoustic demo, raw and unpolished, before inviting a guest, perhaps a fellow Filipino musician, a music producer he admired, or a fan whose own story mirrored his struggles. Through candid dialogue, listeners gained insight into the forging of ballads and anthems, the collaborative roots of cultural fusion, and the vulnerability each artist faces on the path to expression. The podcast quickly earned a loyal following, further entwining Roland's story with those who found solace in shared creativity. Parallel to audio storytelling, Roland explored literary expression. In partnership with a Filipino author noted for her moving memoirs, he embarked on writing his own life story. Drafts accumulated in virtual notebooks, anecdotes of nighttime sea storms, the first time a stranger recorded his karaoke performance, and the kaleidoscope of emotions he felt in that audition room on AGT. The writing process required unprecedented introspection. Revisiting childhood scars and moments of acute shame felt like reopening salt wound cuts, yet it also offered catharsis and clarity. Excerpts posted on his blog elicited waves of empathy-driven comments, messages from former street performers who saw in Roland a roadmap for dignity, from overseas workers who recognized his combination of humility and grit. The memoir, titled Current of Dreams, was slated for publication alongside an original album, with proceeds earmarked for educational scholarships in rural Cebu. Meanwhile, Roland's musical horizons continued to expand. He collaborated with a Japanese pianist to record a bilingual single that interwove Tagalog verses with minimalist jazz chords. He teamed up with a Grammy-nominated R&B vocalist on a duet exploring the universality of longing. These collaborations were not merely marketing gambits. They represented Roland's belief that art gains power when differences collide in harmony. Negotiating studio time across time zones became routine. He reviewed mixing sessions from a beachfront Airbnb in Bali, offering feedback while waves lapped at shore. In each project, he sought to strike a balance between honoring his authentic roots and embracing the liberating possibilities of genre-fluid exploration. Despite his evolving artistry, Roland never lost sight of social impact. He partnered with an international environmental NGO advocating for sustainable fishing practices, an issue close to his heart. He narrated a short documentary highlighting the plight of coastal communities facing rising sea temperatures and overfishing. His narration, delivered with gentle authority, sharpened attention toward communities that had nurtured him. Fundraisers tied to the film funneled resources into discrete projects: solar-powered fish dryers, vocational training for young fishermen, and community-led coral restoration. Every time Roland lent his voice to a cause, he layered his own story of resilience onto broader narratives of collective survival. As press coverage deepened, some outlets questioned whether Roland risked overextension. Could one man juggle podcast hosting, memoir writing, multiple musical collaborations, documentary narration, and philanthropic leadership without losing focus? Roland acknowledged that burnout was real, nights when exhaustion overwhelmed inspiration. Yet he countered that diversity of purpose often prevented stagnation. Shifting among roles sharpened his creative instincts and reinforced core motivations. To maintain equilibrium, he established personal rituals: early morning walks on quiet beaches to clear his mind, weekly family video calls scheduled like sacred appointments, and monthly retreats to the Barangay Hall, where he first organized music workshops, reconnecting with the simple joy of teaching newcomers to sing. Now, as he prepared to headline a cultural festival celebrating Filipino creativity in Paris, Roland reflected on how far he'd come from the lone fisherman practicing melodies at dawn. The road had been strewn with setbacks: elimination from AGT, skepticism from industry gatekeepers, logistical nightmares. And yet each obstacle had carved out a new direction. He had learned that success was not a singular luminous moment under stage lights, but a mosaic of incremental evolutions, of collaborations, community engagement, and the courage to keep singing even when the outcome felt uncertain. His story remained unfinished, a living testament that the true measure of artistry lies in embracing contrast between solitude and solidarity, tradition and innovation, struggle and triumph. Today, in the heart of Paris under a sky streaked with evening lights, Roland Abante prepares to step onto another stage, a cultural festival celebrating Filipino creativity and the shared threads of music, memory, and migration. It will be his first major headline performance on European soil, and while he feels a familiar flutter of nerves, he also senses the resilience he's built through years of hustling between fishing boats, karaoke bars, audition rooms, and global tours. In this moment, he understands that every chapter, every tide of hope and setback, has led him here. The contrast between the humble nets he once mended by moonlight and the spotlight he now commands in one of the world's great capitals highlights a transformational journey rooted in authenticity rather than manufactured showmanship. As the festival announcer calls his name, Roland steps forward with a calm steadiness informed by countless performances in far smaller community halls. He feels his family's presence in the hush that falls across the audience when he opens his mouth to sing. For a moment, time seems suspended as his voice weaves through the first notes of his anthem, one that acknowledges where he came from as much as where he dreams to go. In the crowd, faces from every continent watch spellbound. Some hold miniature flags, others record on their phones, capturing the image of a man who refused to let geography define his destiny. In that instant, the fisherman from Cebu becomes every listener's reminder that talent finds you in life's most unexpected currents. Following his performance, Roland carries the night's energy into a series of intimate meet and greets, all part of his signature commitment to breaking down barriers between artist and audience. Patrons line up to share brief exchanges. A teenage fan expresses how his music gave her courage to audition for her own local contest. An elderly couple recalls crying the first time they heard his viral audition clip. A college student from Nigeria requests advice about blending traditional rhythms with contemporary sounds. Roland listens, offers encouragement, and reminds each person that creative endeavors are built on both vulnerability and practice. These moments echo the philosophy he's embraced from the start. Art thrives not in isolation, but through human connection. Backstage, he reflects on how his career has become inseparable from community building. He exchanges notes with festival organizers about expanding music workshops in European Filipino enclaves and exploring collaborative concerts with local artists. These discussions foreshadow Roland's next ventures, cross-cultural exchanges that will see him introducing Cebuano folk ballads to audiences in Berlin art houses and learning flamenco rhythms from Spanish guitarists in Barcelona. He envisions a series of mini-residencies where he offers songwriting masterclasses and in return absorbs unexpected influences. The ambition is not overnight stardom, but a tapestry of creative dialogues that honor his roots while welcoming fresh inspiration. Later that evening, amidst the flicker of street lamps and pastry-scented air, Roland types a social media post from his smartphone. Merci, Paris. Tonight reminded me that music belongs to everyone, no matter where we come from. Let's keep sharing stories and songs across oceans. The response is immediate. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, and new followers from as many as 25 countries. He scrolls through encouraging messages, mindful that each digital connection is a thread in the global network that propelled him beyond a small Filipino fishing village. In weaving these threads together, Roland continues to defy the notion that reality television fame is fleeting. His story ripples outward, gathering momentum in every time zone. As this chapter in Paris draws to a close, Roland prepares to return home, this time enriched by broader perspectives and international collaborations waiting on his calendar. He knows the journey ahead will still demand more late-night songwriting, more logistical puzzles, and occasional pangs of homesickness. Yet he also understands that true artistic evolution happens at the intersection of comfort and challenge, of familiar tides and uncharted currents. In every challenge he's faced, whether visa delays or venue no-shows, he's discovered new shores of possibility. And in sharing his story through concerts, podcasts, documentaries, memoir, philanthropy, and digital channels, Roland Abante has demonstrated a fundamental truth. The power of a single voice to resonate across cultures depends on unwavering authenticity, relentless adaptability, and deep empathy. If his path from the decks of fishing boats to this Parisian stage teaches us anything, it is that talent alone rarely charts a smooth course. Yet with a sense of purpose rooted in community, the courage to embrace contrast, and an unbreakable belief in the lasting power of song, even the humblest beginnings can find their way to the world's grandest stages. In the end, Roland's story remains a living invitation to confront adversity not as a barrier, but as the source of our distinctive voices, to build bridges through shared narratives, and to remember that every note we sing carries the echoes of where we came from, and the promise of where we might yet arrive.